Hey guys, it's Jason here. So today's video, guys, is basically going to be obviously on the Kraken Vekta. We're going to take it outside. We're going to start it for the first time since last, uh, I guess around the last fall. I think I started running it near the end of the summer, and I may have been, into the fall a little bit, but I haven't ran it since then. But I want to basically start off first, kind of discussing or telling you guys um, my story of this truck and the issues that I had from the beginning. I'm going to immediately say that pretty much all of them are my fault. Um, not blaming Kraken for any of them. Um, and basically, what happened and the mistakes that I made with this truck. Now, I feel like first, if you guys are, if you're new to the channel and you've never watched any of my videos before, I'm not a newbie to fifth scale at all. I have owned probably 10 or so HBI Bajas of all different, like 5B, 5T, 5SC, different chassis conversions, wheels and tires, motors, everything, you name it. Probably about maybe 10 years ago is when I first got my first 5B SS. I've owned two low C5Ts. I have owned a Alkin Cleon. I have owned two Red Cat Rampage MTs and an XB, the buggy. I have owned three FGs, FG Baja 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, and the MT as well, with the full hydros and everything on it. And all those trucks and vehicles were awesome, and I enjoyed them all. So when it came to building this thing, I had no doubts in myself at all. I didn't even think of it as an issue that I would have any problems. So we're going to start off by saying, first issue came when I was building the kit. And I was building the kit and all was going fine. Excuse me, guys. And I see on a post where someone talks about the upgrade bag with the kit. And I was like, what's he talking about? Upgrade bag? And I knew there was another bag in the kit. And it had arms and shock parts and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, wow, Kraken's giving you extras. Like, that's really impressive. Like, I thought most companies do not do things like that. Well, they didn't. What had happened was, during the run, I guess the first batches of the RTRs and the kits, they had bad plastic. And it was very brittle, and it would break no problem. And Kraken fixed the issue, or got the issue fixed, and then they were including this upgrades bag. But I never really took a really good look at it. I just would take the parts off the trees and build the truck. So because of that, I think I'd already built the front, did most of the middle of the truck, and I was on the rear when I discovered that. So I finished building the truck with the newer parts, and then I had to go back and rebuild all the front end with the upgraded plastic parts, and that was done. So at this point now, I think, okay, I'm good to go. But I noticed that my truck doesn't roll well. And I know it had something to do with the brakes, so I spent a lot of time kind of fiddling with that. And I'm going to show you guys. If you look, that little plastic cover right there, okay, it used to basically, there was like a little part that used to come out in the middle, and it used to go right in the top. Well, not the top, but it sat on that one top part. And it just kind of sat in almost like a little C kind of clip, but it was part of this plastic piece. And just the way it sat, it made the brake fairly stiff to move, and it put pressure on all the parts, and it was not good. Basically, you almost would have like a drag brake, I guess you could say, because every time you let off the throttle, it would tighten up again. So I ended up removing the little C-clip part, and which just kind of loosened everything up, and then it was fine. Adjusted the brake, everything was good. Okay, truck rolls awesome. I'm happy. I'm going to get this thing running. So now I take it out for my first run. And basically what I'm doing is I'm going to run an idle tank through it. So I'm going to start it up, let it sit for about 15 minutes running. I usually, blip the throttle, a little bit throughout it and stuff like that. And that's all I do for my first run. That goes no problem. Shut it down. Let it cool down. Go out, start it up again, except this time I'm going to run it. So I let it warm up for 5 minutes. I set it down on the ground. I go to move, and the thing barely wants to move. Kind of like a clutch issue, if your pads are done type thing. It just wouldn't move. And I thought, what now? So bring it in, start looking at it. I can't see anything wrong with it. Long story short, it ends up being the slipper clutch. I was nowhere near tight enough on the slipper clutch. So I pull everything out, tighten down the slipper clutch, bring it to where it's supposed to be, which I think is all the way in, and then back it out a quarter of a turn. Put it back together, get it outside, it runs, it moves. I'm happy. All's good. I do a couple of 50-minute intervals, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to take it to basically a bigger parking lot type thing where I can start running it a little bit. So I go, and as I'm running it, all of a sudden I realize, like, every once in a while when I kind of blip the throttle a little bit, at slower speeds, the rear end kind of breaking loose like a two-wheel drive. So bring it in, put it on tailgate. Sure enough, the little pin that basically holds your outdrive. So I don't even know, guys, if I can get a good angle on it, but yeah, not really. But anyways, down here, guys, right in here, going to the front diff, there's a little pin that had came loose, and I lost my front wheel drive. So I had to order the pin, and I think it ended up taking, I opted out for the cheap route, which was $6 shipping from DDM, and it took a month to get here. So for a month it sat. Finally the pin comes in, get it up, get it running again. So now I'm back out again, and I'm still working on my 50-minute break-in tanks. Start driving around, got through I think 2 more 50-minute tanks, all's good. Driving around, and all of a sudden the truck just does the funky chicken. The rear end goes wonky, and the idling started to change, and I'm like, what happened now? So I hit the kill switch on the radio. I run up to it, and I can smell fuel. Fuel's pouring out all over the place. I thought, did a line come loose? Like, what happened? And guys, I'm going to do my best to explain this. But again, coming down here, right in here, basically one of the pins let go, which allowed the drive shaft to come out, and it spun, guys, up and hit the bottom of my gas tank. And with the speed and the fact that it's steel, I have no idea how it even happened, but it came out, spun, and put a hole in the bottom of my fuel tank. So obviously the minute that happened, pressure changed, fuel, the engine was started running funny, fuel spilled out all over the place. And yeah, so now I'm there. So bring it back to the truck, look at it, realize what happened, came home, talked to Kraken a bit. They were somewhat nice, no over like, oh my God, or anything like that, but basically, we'll help you out a little bit. Kind of lowered the prices a little bit, but with their shipping, it really didn't make much of a difference. But whatever. Got the parts, week later, rebuilt it again. While I'm rebuilding it, I'm thinking to myself, I go online and nobody's having the problems that I'm having. And I'm just thinking, like, what did I do wrong? Like, I feel, competent when it comes to RCs in general, and especially fifth scales. And I go and I'm looking, and I can't find anything that's standing out, what I'm doing wrong. And I'm standing one day, and I'm looking at it, and I'm just kind of looking around the room, and there's all my oils and Loctite and stuff like that. And then I kind of do a double take, and I'm looking at my little Loctite, and it's a little red HPI Loctite that I've had for a really long time. And all of a sudden I thought to myself, does Loctite expire? Which is something you don't really ever think about, and I've never read anything about it. So I thought, I'm going to Google that. So I Google that, and all of a sudden I start reading all about basically the life expectancy of Loctite and how it changes, and how the chemicals just start to change after so much time, and basically that most Loctite will last a few years and nowhere near the 8-7 years that I've probably had it for. So I think to myself, these problems are probably my fault. So I went out, bought some new red Loctite, and basically started going through the truck, all the places where the red Loctite would have been, because I had newer blue Loctite at the time. And I did all the red Loctite, got the truck back together again. I don't even know how many times at this point I've taken it apart. And I did a couple more tanks with 0 issues. 15-minute intervals with 0 issues. And yeah, that's basically my story. That probably 4 issues that caused me probably about a month and a half of not running were because of crappy Loctite. So that brings us to today, where we are going to take this thing outside and we are going to start running it. Not really running it, guys, just basically start it up, let it idle for a little bit, and just see how just to make sure she's still running. I say that because there is a chance that on Tuesday, this truck might be gone. I've done we've kind of constructed a deal, me and somebody else, my Vekta for 2 of his RCs, which isn't easy, but, I don't run the truck anymore as much as I would have liked to. Basically, when I bought this and started building it, there was a lot more guys in North Bay with fifth scales. It looked like more guys were getting into it. And last summer, besides from obviously the endless issues I had, I barely ever got out with this truck. And nobody seems to want to go out anymore that even have fifth scales. So, I kind of decided that if I could get a trade that had equal dollar values that I have into this, meaning if I can see somewhere, between $400 and $4,500 Canadian in value in the trade that I'm going for, in the cars that are offered to me, that I would trade it away. And there was a couple that I was looking for, one in particular, and that's the one that somebody's offered. So if it was supposed to happen last week, it didn't. He ended up having some car issues, but it should be this week. It should actually be on Tuesday. So we're going to see what happens. Hopefully he'll show up and sadly this truck will be gone. But, I've had a hard time, trying to convince myself to keep it. I have in the past, but, it just sits here for the most part, guys, and it just sits there. And it's such an expensive, piece of machinery to just let sit around. It's not like, if it was just a Baja, at $1,000 sitting there, not so bad. But, at the price that this thing cost me, in the little bit of time that I really am going to take it out, it just makes no sense anymore. So that's going to happen, guys, hopefully this week. But at the same time, excuse me, guys, if it doesn't, I'm still cool. This is an amazing, amazing piece of machinery. I've owned, like I said, a lot of different RCs, and, this was the one that I decided that I was going to, be the one that I'm going to keep, because I also had my Losi 5T at the time. I had bought a new Losi 5T, while I had this, and I decided to keep this one just because of the pure, cool factor. It's not that it's better. It's not that it handles better. It's not that it jumps better or faster. It's none of that. If anything, it's probably slower, doesn't handle as good and doesn't jump as good, but it's just the cool factor. And that's cool for me, because you know what, running a fifth scale is kind of like that. It's a lot of cool factor. It's a lot of the, just the sound of the engine and all that kind of stuff. And the Vekta is definitely, the best looking RC, in my opinion, guys, that you can buy. I don't think anything looks as cool as this thing does. Something like a Yeti XL maybe, but that's about it. So we are going to get outside very soon and get this thing running. I dug out the battery. I obviously still have to get it in the box, get all that going. I did, I don't think I changed it in the radio. I think I'm still on a Wraith. So we're just going to go in here, go to model select, choose the Vekta. Yes. And hopefully I choose the Vekta. Yeah, I did. So the radio is good to go. I've already plugged it in. Yep. We're good to go there. Good to go there. And it's funny, I had to think where what I had assigned to my kill switch, but that's my kill switch up there. And we're good to go. All right, guys, we're going to take this thing outside and we're going to give it a start. All right, guys, here we go. First time starting this bad boy up since last year. Go. sound you want to hear, guys. Just like that, guys. First, what was that? Third pull, maybe? Get the burble, turn the choke off, and she starts up. Such a fantastic motor. Zenoa 32, obviously modded by Chris Bartolone. But, yeah, there she is. First startup of the year. 0 issues whatsoever. I did, usually at the end of the year, you know, unlike nitros, you don't ever have to actually run your fuel dry or anything like that. You know, your tank dry. But usually at the end of the year, when I'm done with it, that's the one time that I'll run the tank pretty much as dry as I can get, empty out the fuel, and again, then at that point, just kind of prime the bulb a few times, just to make sure that we get all the fuel out, just so there's nothing left in the lines. But yeah, guys, you know, I've not had any issues. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I had a few issues with the truck, and a lot of those were my doing. But that motor has been, it's been amazing. It's been a fantastic engine. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I don't know if you can tell right now, I didn't really want to start this thing because I had a feeling that once I heard it, I'd be like, oh man, I want to keep this thing and get it running. But I didn't want to do a deal with anybody, especially the guy that I'm doing a deal with. He's got to drive about 4 hours. I didn't want to do a deal and not start it up first, and not just do my first, you know, test just to make sure things are all good. Even though there's no reason they wouldn't have been, I still just like to know that everything's good to go. But yeah, yeah, I don't know what to do. You know, it's one of those things where, like I said, I've got nobody to run with, so I don't do a lot of running with it, because, you know, sometimes you go out by yourself, it's not a whole lot of fun. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Do I just keep it and say, you know what, I've bought it, I've paid for it, I built it, I've spent the money, and just enjoy it? Or do I move on? And like I said, guys, what I'm going for, it's got money in it too, probably just as much as this, so I'm not losing any money. Which, you know, if I ever decide, you know, if this scale ever takes off again here where I live, and I decide I want to build up another one at some point, You know, I'm not going to regret it. It's not like I'm out a bunch of money or anything like that. Anyways, guys, like I said, thanks for watching. And you know, if you're new to, if you're thinking about getting a Kraken, you know, hopefully, you know, or if you know people that are, you know, getting a Kraken, you know, kind of pass this video along. It kind of gives them a little bit of pointers. There's a few other videos I've done on just, you know, things to look out for too with them. But anyways, guys, thanks a lot. Have a good day.